Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there, staying safe. It was quite active yesterday across the eastern U.S., the I-95 corridor, basically from yesterday afternoon, evening, into the overnight hours. We even had some storms into the wee hours of the morning this morning. This is, for the most part, is cleared out into the Atlantic Ocean, but we're still dealing with some active weather as I speak right now. We're expecting some more storms to refire up along a cold front boundary along the I-95 corridor. So that's going to be a possibility a little bit later today. We'll talk about that for you folks in like the mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, even upper portions of the Southeast. And then we'll give you a breakdown of really the big story today, which has been an increased risk of severe weather across the middle of the country. We now have an enhanced risk across areas of like Oklahoma, Kansas, and then an additional slight risk further north of that. Who knows, that might upgrade to an enhanced risk also. We might have like a bimodal enhanced risk. So the trend as of late has been that maybe 1 or 2 days out, even 2 to 3 days out, it doesn't look like the predicted day 3 days from that point is going to be that bad. And then we'll get closer to it in time, and then all of a sudden the confidence increases. So therefore they increase the risk for severe storms. For significant severe storms as we get closer to that time frame. So that is the case for today. Yesterday we were only looking at a marginal risk, then an upgrade to a slight, and now we're waking up to an enhanced risk. So some active times again expected today. So we'll break that down for you folks. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, guys. I want to just say thank y'all once again for the incredible month of June as far as growth. It has surpassed May, which is very surprising. I mean, it might make a run at April. We got a few more days left of the month. I doubt it. But I mean, June is definitely right in the middle of one of the slower portions of the weather season on this channel, if that makes any sense. It's typically when things kind of relax a little bit, the summer grind kicks in, and really the only thing to really speak on is heat and storms in the upper portion of the country. But it's been so active, there's been a lot to talk about, and I just want to say thank y'all for everybody that's been supporting me. I hit 46,000 subscribers yesterday. So thanks again for the amazing support from all y'all. Welcome to any new people to the channel. Beautiful family-like atmosphere here. We plan to keep it that way. If you guys got anything that I can pray about, pray over as always, please put those in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it. Gives others an opportunity to do so too. And we all can look out for one another and glorify God doing it through prayer. Let's roll. Wider vapor loop out there. Right now we got leftover moisture along the I-95 corridor. We'll talk about that here in a second when we show you guys the radar. We got the ridge. Let's hope this thing works for us. It's built, so we're rocking. It's built over this region right here. This in general will try to shift further east in time. That means more areas further east in the deep south will begin to heat up, and you actually have excessive heat watches up for areas further east, like in the Tennessee, Alabama, places like that. So we have a setup today called the Ridge Rider setup, and basically on the upper portion of this ridge, okay, you got the high right into here. All right, ridge of high pressure. You get waves, basically energy, short wave troughs, basically a piece of energy that fires up, and then wherever the more favorable time of the day is when this piece of energy is rolling through, that's typically where you'll have your storms. So you actually got a lot of activity firing up or ongoing this morning right across the middle of the country. You see these wider areas, that is where showers and storms are ongoing across everybody right smack in the middle of the country. We'll have an additional area that probably develops somewhere in here later today, and this will fly the boundary of the upper portion of the ridge and move that way. There could be some intense storms in this region, and there could be some intense storms all across this region later today. We have to watch. Could be some very intense storms. So there's a slight risk up here, enhanced risk down here, and then we'll watch as a boundary is set up somewhere right into here, give or take. Probably doesn't extend this far south, but so this is technically a cold front, but it's that time of the year here in the southeast where a cold front only cools you down about 1 or 2 degrees and drops the humidity literally a tad. It's just, you don't get deep, surging, weather-affecting cold fronts besides in the form of storms, but nothing really affecting much in the way of temperatures this time of the year. We got to start getting back into late August, September before we start seeing that again, which I can't wait for, but we'll watch for more storms to fire up along this region. Let's get this off the screen. And let's look at what's happening on radar out there. It's very active across the middle of the country. You even got a severe warning storm here in southern sections of South Dakota. It'll get quite active in this area again later this afternoon. Maybe the same areas that are experiencing some strong to severe storms right now. Could experience it again later this afternoon and this evening. As you can tell, most of the active weather has moved off the eastern seaboard, but we'll watch for additional showers and storms to develop in this region potentially later today, especially the Delmarva area I'm watching. But you still got this upper level spin right here that's going to bring numerous showers and storm activity across the Northeast. Don't expect much in the way of severe weather, but you're just going to get sporadic downpours again in the interior areas of the Northeast. It's raining this morning, or was raining in the Boston area. Out in Cape Cod, Nantucket, it's definitely raining out there this morning, and raining out in the Outer Banks, and raining in the Bahamas down here. So middle of the country, quite active, like I mentioned. Storm Prediction Center, we got an enhanced risk. We'll see if this gets upgraded to an enhanced risk on a later update here in the next 2 hours. But you got the enhanced risk right here, and you can actually see the ridge off the Storm Prediction Center, right? You see how it kind of rounds this area? Right under this, right in the heart of Texas, you got sinking, hot, stagnant air, light flow, meaning light winds, just hotter than Hades. And north of this, you got a flow. Now, when you're right under the influence of high pressure, I don't mean you can't get a pop-up storm or two, but there's no flow aloft really supporting or driving it. So it really is a popcorn kind of scenario where it pops up, and then within 30 minutes, it's probably going to dissipate. It basically chokes itself out. So that could happen across Texas later today, but the big threat here is right here in Oklahoma and Kansas, and we'll break that down. We got an enhanced risk and a slight risk up here, and then you check out the marginal risk. So some of these showers off this upper level low could become severe in New York State, eastern PA, and then this is really driven off that cold front where you'll still have a surge of moist, active air, if you will, with higher Cape levels. So tornado threat, low in both of these, only a 2% risk. We'll see if this increases, but as of now, just a 2% risk in both areas within 25 miles in the given location. Wind threat. So this is the big threat today. You have a 30% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. Remember, that's 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then in the yellow, you have a 15% risk of the same criteria. But if you notice the black outline region going all the way over the red area and then over portions of the yellow area, that is a 10% risk of significant winds, which, remember, is winds exceeding 65 knots or higher. That's over hurricane force winds, which is over 74 miles per hour or higher. So we're going to have a chance at some damaging winds. In fact, somebody's going to see it today across southern Kansas, northern Oklahoma, as we are watching the evolution of a complex of storms with damaging winds, and then hail is going to be a big threat too. Hail with this, both areas up here, you have a hatched risk of hail and then a hatched risk of hail down here. So not only do you have the 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger, you also have the 10% risk in both areas. And down here in the southern region, it doesn't cover the entire 15% risk area, but it might as well, right? But technically it still doesn't. But you have a 10% risk of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger in this region. So please be careful. We'll break it down more detailed here in a second when we get to you guys' time frame. But rainfall today, you could have some flash flooding in the northern plains, and we'll talk about why here in a second. But we'll watch, northern New Jersey, eastern and northeast areas of PA, into areas kind of like the southern Adirondacks, things like that. Now, I wouldn't consider this the Adirondacks, but you get what I'm saying. There's some higher terrain right here in northeast PA and northwest New Jersey, and this little slither of an area right here in New York State. And you got to watch. If you get a lot of rain throughout the next 24 hours, watch for flash flooding in this region. There's a slight risk, which is at least a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being met. I had all the mountain ranges memorized pretty much in the Northeast back in February and March when you guys got some snow risk, but I'm going to have to relearn them. I know the names of them just geographically speaking. The Poconos is in PA, but anyways, let's get off that. Watches, warnings, most of this, 90% of it is driven off heat, but you got some flood watches in New Hampshire and western sections of Maine, and in that area we're watching for flash flood right here in these mountainous terrains of northeast PA and areas of New York State and New Jersey. And then in Montana, flood watches continuing. It seems like you guys have been under flood watches nonstop over the last few weeks. But you see this burgundy color right here, this dark red, that is excessive heat watches. So the heat is coming for these regions. You already will feel it today. And this includes Memphis, Jackson, Mississippi. I mean, it includes It includes like Montgomery, Alabama, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Nashville, up to Paducah, the Boot Hill, Missouri, and all of eastern sections of Arkansas. Heat advisories up in the Orange counties, excessive heat warning. So this is legit in the warning areas. Very hot in the bayou today, southern Mississippi. The heat is on. The heat is on. Where the summer grind is definitely starting to take over areas further east now. And, I'm sure the people in Texas and Oklahoma are saying, you guys can have it. We don't want it, but you guys are still roasting too. But the Southeast, this is what to expect today. We'll continue to work our way through the morning hours. Maybe some showers are possible. An isolated storm in areas of Mississippi, and they could, become robust as we get into the afternoon hours. So watching around the Jackson area, down into southern Mississippi, could have some storms. They could become severe, but you notice some storms fire up along this I-95 corridor. Really points east. I would say I-95 runs a lot more inland in the Carolinas as it does as you work your way northeast up into the mid-Atlantic and northeast. But you could certainly have some more storms again in the Norfolk area, the Outer Banks, far eastern sections of North Carolina into the Delmarva region. And then you could have some isolated showers, which are possible, a downpour or two. Even in further west into the Carolinas, it's certainly possible. But you'll finally get a more calm day in Florida today. Not expecting much in the way of widespread showers and storms. You make your way all the way into the morning hours, and not a whole lot's going on. We'll watch the leftovers of these storms that are possible. We'll talk about Arkansas here in the south central time frame, so bear with me. I know Arkansas, Louisiana, I kind of switch back and forth between the southeast and south central time frame. I know you guys are yelling at me because you never know what timestamp to click. Do apologize. We'll get that right eventually. But the Mid-Atlantic today, you're dealing with some showers already this morning. We'll make our way into about 1-2 p.m. Here we go. They're firing up again in West Virginia. You could have just scattered and smothered downpours out there. Western sections of Maryland, as we're getting into the early afternoon hours, could get a storm or two also in Pittsburgh, but more so just some kind of spurts of heavy rain. And then we work our way a little bit further east where there's better thermodynamics. Some of these could reach severe limits. Washington, D.C., early to mid-afternoon, maybe late afternoon, could get quite stormy for you folks. These work their way and become more widespread than the Delmarva region and southeast VA and then northeast North Carolina. Very isolated and scattered also, but some areas might not get a drop of rain. Some areas might get an intense thunderstorm later this afternoon, this evening. So please be aware in this entire region today. I know that's very broadly speaking, but it's going to be impossible to figure out exactly where these are hit. But I say if you're in the Delmarva area, Delaware, Maryland, coastal regions of Maryland, and then New Jersey and eastern PA, you stand a pretty good chance to see some intense storms today. I don't think it's going to be compared to yesterday, but you're going to have another round of storms later this afternoon into this evening across this entire region. They could produce some small hail, some gusty winds. Tornado threat is very, very low, if almost non-existent, but it's there. It's always there with any kind of storm, but it's very low, very weak flow aloft. But, watch out for some intense storms, just some good old afternoon showers and storms, just typical summer flow out there. The rest of the Northeast, this upper level low will bring a ton of pop-up shower and storm activity by early to mid-afternoon. I mean, this is like, I've already talked about this region, but anywhere from the eastern half of Ohio all the way through pretty much everybody in PA. The southern tier of New York State will become active first, but then eventually as you get later in the afternoon to the early evening hours, you can get widespread storms and showers, downpours in New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, up into Ontario. Certainly going to be there, and there's going to be enough oomph to the atmosphere for some of these to become strong and severe. So Binghamton, the Finger Lakes, up to Syracuse, maybe even Watertown, you could get a strong storm or two later this afternoon into the evening hours. It is certainly possible, and they will last all the way through the evening hours, and I think they will lose some steam as you get into the overnight hours, and as you can tell, the coverage becomes less widespread, but could still be dealing with some heavier rain in New York State and Vermont. Is certainly possible. Also, some downpours are possible in southern New England, Mass, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Could get a surge of some moisture into Boston a little bit later overnight tonight into the wee hours of the morning. But As far as rain, could be waking up to more rain also tomorrow in the Northeast. But rainfall today, some areas could get a ½ inch to 1.5 inches of rain in this area where there's flood watches in New Jersey, Northeast PA, into the mountainous regions of New York State. But I mean, even interior New York State, some areas could get a 1/4 inch of rain, some areas could get 1 inch of rain. Just depends on how often you get hit by these showers and storms a day. But certainly watch out just for any flash flooding, especially if you just happen to be that town or community or city that continuously gets slammed by the shower and storm activity. South Central U.S. today, this will be the active area to talk about. And really we'll take, as always, a more broad look at what's going on first. And here comes the storms firing up. You got storms up here in Nebraska, Kansas, the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas. And then they form. And you back this up 1 hour because this is in Central Time, so it says 8 p.m., but this is 7 p.m. Intense storms fire up. Could be a tornado threat early on in these storm modes. You could get a brief tornado. You can't rule it out here, probably just south of Dodge City. Liberal, even watch out again around Perryton. Could get some intense storms as far south as that. These will drift in. I would say these will be maybe north of Woodward, but they could be around that area, basically between Woodward, Oklahoma, and Greensburg, Kansas, probably right as the sun's setting. And these will sweep through and kind of ride that Oklahoma-Kansas border and then begin to sink southeast around this portion of the ridge. It's going kind of like this right here. And then these will blast through kind of the Ozarks and northwest Arkansas. Could get some very stormy conditions also in western Missouri into the basically into the wee hours of the morning tomorrow morning. A little bit closer look at this as we always do. Here we go. Bang, storms form, quite intense. Okay, this is before the sun goes down. It's around 6-7 p.m. Like I said, in and around the Garden City area, Point South, Sublet, Hugoton. If I mispronounce anything, you guys correct me. Liberal. It gets really close to the Dodge City area around late afternoon, early evening time frame. But I mean, these are very intense all the way down into the panhandle of Oklahoma, Forgan, Beaver. You guys, Buffalo, Laverne, please be careful. And then these freezer right here. This is when I think the storms could be an all-hazard scenario where you got large hail, damaging winds, and a tornado threat. Right here when it's leaving that area of the panhandle of Oklahoma, it's starting to get very close to that Woodward area, points north. And these are blasting through, probably producing the potential for hurricane-force winds, large hail in excess of 2 inch in diameter or larger, and then that frequent lightning, and then that brief tornado threat. These will continue. The sun's setting at this point, and this is kind of straddling that Kansas-Oklahoma line. If you're a town, I would say hour north or hour south of the Kansas-Oklahoma line, I would be very aware later this afternoon, later this evening of these storms. And then they begin to take, as you get to after midnight, they begin to take more of that southeast approach, moving from the northwest to the southeast. If you're worried in Tulsa, I mean, you guys technically do have that enhanced risk of storms. These could very well be more south than what this is showing. So please be aware of this. Tulsa right in here. You guys are well aware of these storms. You had that complex of storms that moved in, what was it, early last week or the week before that just knocked out all the power. And I think Arkansas is still dealing with a ton of power outages from the storms the day before yesterday. So hope you guys are getting your power back. These storms could make it all the way into western Missouri into like the 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning time frame. Could be quite intense in Joplin, Fayetteville, Springfield in the wee hours of the morning, but I think they lose some steam. But we'll see. A lot of times they're a lot stronger than what models indicate. So be careful in this entire region today, okay? I normally don't show the wind swaths like this, but this is wind swaths. And basically, I know you see these weird gaps between these higher level of winds, but this is basically hour by hour time frame. So this could easily be right here. So basically, this entire region is what you watch. You can see where the line of storms goes through, and you got little areas where it shows 75 to 80 mile per hour winds in these whitish pinkish colors. And then in the reds and orange, I mean, that's 50 to 60 mile per hour winds. So just know, if you're in this entire region right in here, The winds are going to be quite intense in this line of storms. That's why this is a wind-driven enhanced risk today. The winds will be serious, and this is typically the case with these ridge rider storms. This is typically how you get derechos. These ridge riders, they just ride the outer boundaries of these upper ridge of high pressure, and that's going to be the case. So definitely anywhere from 40 to as much as 80 mile per hour wind gusts are possible with these lines. This line of storms today. This could move a little bit further north, could move a little bit further south, could flirt with the Oklahoma City area. We'll see what happens. Up here in the north central U.S., the upper Midwest, pretty quiet. The Great Lakes region, you're kind of right sandwiched in between the upper level low that you just kind of delivered you guys rain, and then the upper ridge that's all the way up into this region. You guys are not going to get much today. Some of this activity could eventually drift into Minnesota into the late evening, overnight hours. So as you're making your way into the wee hours of the morning, could have an area of showers, maybe storms action in the eastern Dakotas, moving into central Minnesota. And then you might be waking up to some light to moderate rain in the northern half of Minnesota tomorrow morning, beginning to inch its way into northern Wisconsin and then the UP of Michigan. But you can have on and off showers across this whole entire area, the upper and Midwest in this region. But really you focus in on the northern plains. This is where I think you're going to get some powerful supercells today. Now, tornado threat is relatively low due to weak kinematics, weak wind flow aloft, but it could start off in northeast and southeast sections of Montana as early as just after lunchtime. Could get some intense storms, intense storm development up here in North Dakota. These could produce a lot of hail. And then watch these couple storms. This one, technically in this area of Nebraska, I believe you have, just a marginal risk. I actually think you'll have an extension of the slight risk right into this area here in the next one or two updates, but we'll see what happens. But, there shows some pretty intense supercells. I would say this is... trying to figure out some cities in this area. There's not a lot of area. The Valentine region of Nebraska. Watch out for an intense supercell or two right around your area. But these can be anywhere, guys. They really could. North Platte, point south and southwest. Some intense supercells. There's some really intense looking at supercells right here. One straddling that South Dakota-Nebraska state line, and one right here deep in southwest Nebraska. These two could merge, and these could be producing giant hail. Softball size hail. But you got to watch this. If there's any storm chaser that just happens to be on this one of these storms, it's probably going to produce a very photogenic storm. Hopefully, it doesn't affect anybody significantly or anything like that. Of course, you can't. It's unrealistic to think it's not going to affect anybody unless it just pops up in one spot and sits there. But some of these storms will be very intense, very photogenic, and could cause some areas to see significant hail damage, maybe a brief tornado. And I can almost bet one of these storms are going to produce a tornado in Nebraska or South Dakota today, maybe even Kansas. So intense storms. I would watch for some supercells right in here in South Dakota, Nebraska, maybe even far northern areas of Kansas later today. And these keep on going, as you get into the overnight hours, late evening hours, they lose kind of that supercell structure and kind of get strung out, and then just left with some showers and storms. But definitely some intense weather expected in this region today. Probably a connection of these two slight risks will happen through Nebraska into Kansas later on today, but some intense supercells definitely. Some heavier showers and storms. Some of these could be severe in Wyoming too. It's a Yellowstone National Park points east, and then you're going to get some more heavy rain possible in southern sections of Montana also. The Rockies, you still got that little spin out here. It's not really little. It's pretty big. But the same area is kind of expected to get some rain today. You'll stop it here. It's around 4 p.m. Rocky and West time, 3 to 4, 5 p.m. Give or take an hour. You got showers here, and west central Washington State, western Montana, really anywhere in Montana, central sections of Idaho, eastern sections of Oregon, northern Nevada, and then we mentioned western Wyoming. A lot of rain could fall right in the heart of Idaho, definitely for sure. And some of these mountainous regions could get a lot of rain in western sections of Montana as we get into the late afternoon, evening time frame. These will continue to spin away in these same regions, and then, we get into the overnight hours and they lose their punch. Still could be dealing with a little bit of lingering rain. Y'all definitely been getting a good bit of rain up here. Y'all had a dry few days, but it's picking back up again. Temperatures extremely hot across the south central U.S. High temperatures well into the 100s. Heat index well over 105, 110, 115 degrees in some areas, maybe even 120. But you can tell the heat is beginning to ooze east. A little bit of a cooler day in the Carolinas with the influence of this cold front in place, upper 80s, low 90s, which really is typical late June weather. But some of this heat is really building in. Birmingham will feel it today. We'll walk out and be like, okay, there's the summer heat, 90s widespread, maybe some upper 90s into South Georgia. And this is really beginning to build a little bit further east. So heat's coming back, or finally coming, in areas of the southeast. Hot, humid weather, which is typical in Florida. Much cooler in the Ohio Valley, Midwest sections. I would say eastern sections of the Midwest, because some people consider Ohio the Midwest, which is never mind. Won't get into that, which is very odd to me, very odd, geographically speaking. But the 70s and 60s for the Northeast, cooler temperatures for sure today, with clouds and numerous showers and storms with this upper level low. Warm up into the upper Midwest, nothing too unusual for this time of the year. You go out west, warming up for these sections of New Mexico, Arizona, but it's still in general pretty below average for this time of the year, except if you're in the Pacific Northwest, a little bit above average, but heating up finally a little bit more in the valleys of North Carolina. But you continue just to be, in general, on average, below average for most out here. Not everybody, but for most. Let's give you an update on the tropics really quickly. The leftovers of Cindy. I know I haven't given you an update on the tropics in a while. I'm not the person that's going to talk something to death. Especially when something immediate, there's something immediately more significant, like the severe weather that we've been talking about over the last couple of days. But there's a lot of great channels that just talk about the tropics nonstop. There's a lot of channels out there that just focus on one specific kind of weather, and there's a lot like that on social media in general too. Some people really favor winter weather, favor severe weather, or favor the tropics. I like all of them. I favor winter weather more than all of them, but I definitely try to educate myself on all three, which are the three main topics. But there's a 30% risk that the leftovers of Cindy can basically reform and turn back into maybe a tropical depression or something. I would watch this if you're in Nova Scotia. I can tell you the overnight morning models don't look as impressive with this. We had some model runs over the last couple of days that really formed this back into an all-out tropical storm, almost a hurricane, and then affected areas of Canada up here, Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. But I would watch this if you're in Nova Scotia. I know I used to have, I don't know if you guys still tune in, but I used to have several people that would tune in from up in this area. You guys in Canada have always been so polite and nice, and I really appreciate anybody who views. But I would watch this for sure. But the models, for example, the latest European, and here it is, the leftovers of Cindy. If it was to form, it probably would really threaten Nova Scotia, for example. Friday morning, it tries to do something. That millibar number begins to drop, indicating maybe a strengthening system, but really it just doesn't work out. It really doesn't. But we'll watch it. If you look at the satellite visibility of what's going on, the sun is setting on the remnants of Cindy. You still got that center of circulation right here, but it's completely exposed. Watch as the sun come up. You can see kind of the cinnamon bun. And I've always struggled with the word cinnamon. I always say cinnamon. And in fact, I say it as a joke now to my wife to irritate her. But the cinnamon bun kind of spin out here is ongoing. The center of low pressure is completely exposed. And all the convection is basically firing off only on the eastern side of what's left of Cindy out here. So it's definitely not a healthy system, and not really a system at all. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. And I should have a video this evening, but there's a chance I might not make a video. Just kind of, I think it's going to get to that kind of the way of the summer where I might take more breaks during the summer. It's been a grind over the last week and a half. It's just been constantly things to talk about. So break is definitely needed every once in a while. And I know you guys understand. But God bless all y'all. Have a great Tuesday, and I'll talk to you soon.